Hi guys, welcome to Bible Breakdown. We're doing Acts chapter 17. The summary, and then I'm going to get into. For the summary, I wrote, Paul continues his quest on going to different locations and spreading the word. First stop was Thessalonica. As time went on, a number of Jews became jealous, formed a mob, and started a riot through the city. They were on the hunt to find a man named Jason and his home, believing that Paul would be there. There was no sign of Paul, but they got a hold of Jason and showed the crowd how he's linked to Paul's presence being there. These Jews expressed how they're disturbing their world by going against the words of Caesar and claiming there's a king over him. Following that, a bond was given and they were let go. The night came and Paul and Silas were pushed away to travel elsewhere. Arriving to this new town, there was a better dynamic. The people were more willing to learn, which led them to more believers forming. Then the men from the town before heard their new location and traveled there to enrage the crowds. Because of this, Paul was quickly sent away, but Silas and Timothy stayed. A group traveled with Paul, then returned back to where they came from after hearing Silas and Timothy were traveling to meet up with Paul again. Now, the new town that Paul is in caused him great distress due to the amount of idols that were being worshipped. Paul took a slower approach trying to win these people over. Then he had questions but decided to gather at the Areopagus to learn more new things. From there, Paul preached on the ways of God and repentance. Mentioning resurrecting the dead seemed to be a deal breaker for some, but others decided to continue to follow Paul as he left because they became new believers and wanted to. So now for the breakdown, I combined the two first sections. So the first section is titled A Short Ministry in Thessalonica, and the second one is Riot in the City. For verses 1 to 9, I wrote that it shows us that the journey of leading people to Christ isn't always smooth. You'll experience people that have a difference in opinion. And I feel like that's like an obvious concept to grasp because not everybody's going to believe the same things as you. But Paul has had his fair share of people having a difference in opinion. And his might be a little more extreme than what we might experience, but still relatable. So to paint the picture, I'm going to read a few verses. So verses 2 and 3, verses 5, and then part of verse 7 and verse 8. Verse 2 and 3 say, As usual, Paul went into the synagogue and on third Sabbath days reasoned with them from the scriptures, explaining and proving that it was necessary for the Messiah to suffer and raise from the dead. This Jesus I am proclaiming to you is the Messiah. And then verse 5 says, But the Jews became jealous, and they brought together some wicked men from the marketplace, formed a mob, and started a riot in the city. Attacking Jason's house, they searched for them to bring them out to the public assembly. And then part of verse 7 and verse 8 says, They are all acting contrary to Caesar's decrees, saying that there is another king, Jesus. The crowd and city officials who heard these things were upset. So this paints the full picture that Paul, Silas, and whoever else was on his team at the time went to a city, started talking about Jesus. Some people received it well, and some people had their own difference in opinion. But the way that you react, I feel like, is the testament to this. You see two different sides. Like the people that are walking with Jesus kind of move with grace, and the people that don't move with violence. And I'm just saying that for this specific example because I know there's been times where people that walk with Jesus move in violence, me included. So it's not impossible to happen, but we should definitely try to just leave that to the Lord. Now the next section is titled The Bereans Search the Scriptures. For verses 10 to 15, I wrote that it tells us the importance of engaging in the word alongside sharing the faith. So for that, I want to read verses 10 and 11, and it says, As soon as it was night, the brothers and sisters sent Paul and Silas away to Berea. Upon arrival, they went into the synagogues of the Jews. The people here were of more noble character than those in Thessalonica, since they received the word with eagerness and examined the scriptures daily to see if these things were so. I feel like we can all learn from that because it's common to have followers of Christ listen to other people preach the word, kind of like what I'm doing here. But I feel like we should personally be going into the word ourselves for a few reasons. One, to fact check, and two, to get a better understanding for ourselves. I encourage you, if you follow these videos, definitely read the word on your own and like compare what I'm saying to what you have in front of you. Now the next section is titled Paul in Athens. Verses 16 to 21, I wrote that it's a sign of why it's good to take the time to grow your connection with God. He may and eventually will if you allow him and you receive it. reveal the things that are important to keep and the things to steer away from. So first I'll read verse 16 and then I'll read verses 19 to 21. So verse 16 says, "When Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was deeply distressed when he saw that the city was full of idols." Then verse 19 to 21 say, "They took him and brought him to the Areopagus and said, 'May we learn about these new teachings you're presenting? Because what you say sounds strange to us, but we want to know what these things mean.' Now all the Athenians and the foreigners resided there spent their time on nothing else but telling or hearing something new." So to my point that I was making, these people are showing signs that they're willing to learn, and I feel like them learning is going to steer them away from the idols that were mentioned at the beginning of the section. You never know, somebody might present something to you that's in the Bible that you haven't heard of or that you need to revisit because God is trying to tell you something. Chapter, the last title is The Areopagus. For verses 22 to 34, I wrote that this is a testament to show us how to relate to others that may have different beliefs. For this section, I'll reference you to verses 22, 24, 30, and 31. Essentially, in that section, Paul is presenting himself to these people in front of the thing that is important to them. And the way that he addresses it is with so much respect, which I respect because I like the approach of getting on a common ground rather than trying to battle against people and try to be like, yeah, my stuff is better than yours. And then in the end, in verses 30 and 31, that's when he takes the time to kind of educate them on his beliefs. And then you see at the end of the chapter that kind of shows some people received it well and some people didn't, and that's okay. That is all I have for you guys. I will see you tomorrow for Acts chapter 18. I love y'all. God loves y'all more. Have a great night.